Obviously, post U of M, disappointed. We point a lot towards that game every year, and it's a big game with it. And you know, sometimes you got to live with it. Got to live with it for a year and be able to put it in perspective a little bit as you go forward. But big game. We need to handle adversity better in that football game. I felt. You know, I thought we started early pretty well, and you know, we can go back through the game as we go. Ask questions if you'd like, but. Bottom line in the game, I thought that it sort of got away from us with the turnovers, especially in the second half. We kept it close, scored first, and had some penalties as we went down through it. But probably the biggest play in the game was the 7-7, and we punted down to the 2, and we're able to, on 3rd and 7, they were able to convert and then drop down the football field. You know, I felt like we had them in a hole there. I thought we had some momentum. The double penalty when we got down to the 30-yard line or so impacted the game as well. But you got to deal with those type of things. So to me, it's always been about what are we going to do next. 2 crucial games coming up. When you look at what we've done in the past 12 years after the Michigan game, win or lose, big game with success, or game where we didn't have the success, we're a 10-2 football team. So we've got to look at that and try to build on that as we go forward, and that's exactly what we'll do. So Rutgers is up next. Nunzio Campanelli, you know, is thrust into a situation there. So I think they're handling that. They play extremely hard. They've had some problems with some injuries and some different things that they have gone through, but it's a crucial game for us as we go over there. The next 2 games critical. So with that, I'll take some questions and we'll sort of go from there.
Mark, with the early signing date coming up, talking to recruits, multiple have said other schools are recruiting against you about your future. When you're asked about that by a recruit, what do you say to them?
I talk about living in the present. I talk about my relationship with them as a recruiter right now. I talk about you know, the future in terms of what's going on for them, the aspects of whether it's facility upgrades that will be coming here in the next years or 2 years or 3 years as we move forward in that area. And I talk about the future. But I also talk to them very sincerely as well. You know, that I don't want to ever be the point of the discussion. I've never tried to be that. When I got asked these questions in the summer, I talked about living in the present, and that's what I try to do. I firmly try and believe that just like today, you know, I'm watching a recruit for, you know, just like last night, we got a national recruit on campus. He's over at practice. He's at the basketball game. We've got, I'm watching film this morning, watching Rutgers this morning. I'm dealing with all kinds of things that give consideration to the future of this program. So we've got 19 committed players right now. I've talked to every one of those players, and I talked to them about it. And of course, everybody's going to use anything they can get. I think the fact that we've had stability here has been something that people look for. So I'm going to try and continue to offer them that stability. My obligation is to my players. The obligation is to the university, Spartan Nation as a whole, and so that's my plans as I go forward. That's what I say.
Mark, a quick point of clarity. Jacob, does he have to sit the first half because of the ejection, or is that just a targeting?
I think that's targeting.
So he would be available to play start?
Yeah.
Okay. Then secondly,
that's as far as I know, because I don't want to get quoted too often. I get quoted a lot, but as far as I know.
You talked about, or you and other guys on your team, players, who said part of the motivation is it can always get worse because you guys have been there. Is part of that almost driven not out of fear of losing, but a fear of not making it worse, and that like being
no, I've always told our players that for years. I've told my players that, our players, because I always believe that you've got to look for the good in things, and that you've got to look for ways to make things better, and that if you feel sorry for yourself, then things invariably go downhill. So, you know, my message to our staff is today or yesterday or Sunday. Message to our football team is the same. You know, you challenge yourself. You challenge yourself to be the best. You challenge yourself with strength to be strong. as I said last week, and you move forward. And that's what I've always tried to do. So, you know, when I've said to somebody, whether they missed a block or they've had some type of situation, hey, it can always get worse. And it can always get worse. So, you know, maintain your level of maturity. And the big message to me, for me, always is, how do you handle adversity? And I think that's something right now that is a challenge for probably everybody in society to some degree, and especially young people. How do you handle your adversity that you're thrust into? So that's a part of it, and that's one of the things we've tried to deal with on a daily basis, not just game to game, but I've said that over the course of time.
Mark, I feel like we've asked this a little bit the last few weeks in some way, but that balance of the youth of this team with trying to get bowl eligible, and I'm thinking specifically along the offensive line, same Matt Duplain starting, and Dobbs got a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
What's that balance like, and what did you see specifically from those three guys that you like?
Well, AJ Curry went, you know, his ankle got tired, you know, basically. But he was able to play, and you know, in that fourth quarter, I wanted to play Devontae Dobbs. I think he needs to play. But, you know, we're playing with a true freshman left guard, a true freshman center, and a true freshman left tackle in the fourth quarter. And, you know, that's tough duty sometimes. Said going into the game, you know, Michigan's a good football team. They have a good football team. Said, hey, we need to play with shock, explosiveness and shock. And we need to do that on a consistent basis. And if we're going to win the football game, that's what has to happen, and we must win the turnover margin. Well, we're -2 in turnovers. And just so everybody's straight, because I do keep record of this, when we're +2, we're 43-2 over the course of time. So it's not that bad when we're -2, but we don't have a winning record when we're -2. So that influences the football game. We didn't either on a consistent basis. They beat us in the shock factor. I'm talking about explosiveness. Okay, so, and that's something we have to be able to accept and change. But young players, when you play 12 true freshmen, and I'm not sure how many redshirt freshmen play, when we're playing people that are in their first experience in that football game, it takes time to understand what it is. It takes time to understand what it's all about. There was a quietness maybe in that stadium when we scored first. Maybe there was a little bit of something there. But over the course of time, it takes time to understand what that game's about. And like I've said to all of them going into the game, you play it one time, you understand. And that's got to benefit you in the future if you choose to allow that to happen. But yeah, we played a lot of young players, and we'll probably have to continue to do that. But they're good players. You know, I bet you you know, 2 years from now, what kind of offensive line we're going to have. Be pretty good. Those guys are very good athletes, they're good players, but they're young. So you've got to take that into consideration.
Mark, just kind of a point of clarity off what Hondo asked. Do you plan to be the coach here against Northwestern
Yes.
start next season?
Yes.
And is there anything that you could see between now and then that would change that?
Well, I can't predict the future. If I would, I guess we'd be 10-0 right now. Okay, but I can't predict the future, but my intentions are to be the head football coach here. And I've always said I live in the present, though. I've always said that. And so, you know, I can't, there's certain things that you have control of, and there's certain things you don't have control of. So I can't control everything, but my intentions are there, yeah, absolutely. My father always taught me to complete circles, complete the circles, so that's what I'm trying to do.
Mark, with Jalen, is he physically, I mean, is he 100%? We see him on the depth chart as a starter and everything. I can tell him warming up.
Yeah, Jalen could have possibly played some, but he hadn't practiced. He really only practiced on Thursday, so he hadn't been hit, he hadn't been jostled around. You know, ball security, you know, those type of things. Wanted to give an extra week to get his feet on the ground, but he'll play. He practiced yesterday, so he'll play in this football game.
And would a red shirt for him be on the table, or could he kind of approach that like Josiah last year, where you see how things play out and put it in his hands, I guess, or?
Well, he only played one game, so he's automatic. If he plays the next two or three.
But yeah, that's bad math on my part. All right, I apologize.
Mark,
I don't know if is there a time, maybe like, I think it was the 2012 season when you guys need to win your last game to get into a bowl, maybe that's an example, but is there another time in your tenure that you can kind of draw for the current situation your team is facing?
Well, in 2012, there was that, we had to win our last two football games to go to a bowl game, and we were able to do that. And that was big for us at that time. I guess last year we had to win our last game, I believe. Well, I guess we still would win, but I really haven't thought that big. And I just know that where our football team is right now, we've had a lot of injuries. We've had a very tough schedule historically in terms of how it's played out, with the buys in there and playing one game basically in a month. We've had some tough breaks, whether it's officiating or with some different things going on, and I'm not pushing it on that, but we've had some things go against us in that capacity, and we thought we'd have a special season going into this season, but got to deal with things as they are, and that's what we'll do, and that's what I'll do. So as I go in there, I talk about belief a lot, and where we're going from there. We've got a lot of people that basically are praying for us, a lot of people that send letters of support or notes of support, so I appreciate those. I appreciate the prayers very, very much. It's humbling when people pray for you. And I appreciate our past players and, getting notes from them and things of that nature, and because they know what we go through. They know how hard we work. They know we work 85 hours plus. Players work 20 plus, or 20 minus, I guess. But they know how important it is to us in terms of winning and losing and how we go about it. Arthur Ray stopped by a practice yesterday, and I had not seen Arthur probably in, I don't know, it's been years. And he's sort of stopped by unannounced, really just to check on me a little bit. But, I thought it was important for our football team to know who he was, what he had gone through, 13 surgeries on a cancerous leg. He's coaching now. And let him tell his story. So when you think that you've got things sort of where there's a struggle, and you look around, you see other people and what they've got, and what they don't have, you sort of find your way a little bit clearer. You understand that this is a job, this is a game, this is athletics. That this should not be life and death. And that there are people out there that have overcome major obstacles. And I took a little bit of I took a step back and looked at that, and it made life a little clearer yesterday.
Mark, in the offseason, when you made decisions, you brought your defensive coaches back on 2-year deals, offensive on 1. Can you explain what that reasoning was? Not questioning you doing it, I'm just asking why you did that.
Yeah, I felt like at that time that was warranted. I think that, that's just the way I wanted to do it, and felt like it was warranted based on how our defense had played, and sometimes there's a separation of those type of things. In the past, it's been certain people. So that's the decision we made at that point in time.
Sometimes when you put too much emphasis on things in life, it can escape you. And so how do you handle that when it comes to trying to win these last 2 games to become bowl eligible? How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
How do I measure the...
Well, sometimes I just feel like if you put too much emphasis on something, it can, like I said, it can escape you.
Go the other direction.
Yeah, right, exactly. So how do you make sure that maybe that doesn't happen?
Well, I want our players to play confident. I want our players to play loose. I want them also to understand there is a pressure to playing these games, but also want them to understand that pressure is a privilege. It's a privilege to be the head coach at Michigan State. There's a lot of pressure that comes with it. It's a privilege to be our quarterback, but more pressure comes at that than probably being a defensive tackle. But there are certain things that have to get done in a football game that you have to understand that, but at the same time it's so important that we be confident and that we have fun with each other and that we move forward in a positive way. That's why yesterday the energy on the football field, there wasn't a lot of poor me's. It was very positive, it was very energetic, it was very light. Because young people, I think, are resilient, probably far more resilient than we are as coaches or we are as adults. But that's the nature of it, and that's the way it should be because it's sport, it's athletic contest. Now, people out there don't want to really hear that because it's important to them too, and it's their school or whatever the case. So everybody gets wrapped up in it and tied up in it. But at the end of the day, our players are going to play. They're come ready to play. They always have. I would say that this past week our players were ready to play. I would say even after we threw the pick at the beginning of the third quarter and they scored a touchdown afterwards, that we rallied back, moved down the field at the 16-yard line, and had a chance to take it to a one-score game, two-score game. So didn't happen. We had to kick a field goal, but it is sort of what it is. But I don't have any doubt that we'll play. We'll be ready to play.
All right, over here. You said your intention is to be back next year as the coach of this team. Is it also your intention to do so with the staff as it?
I don't make decisions on that. I don't make decisions on that until I weigh out everything to the best that I can, because probably I have the most knowledge in terms of what's going on within our football team as to who did what, in terms of was that a player, structure, coaching, officiating, all the underlying things that go along with that. I think that I've tried to figure out, okay, what worked, what didn't work, how to critique it, what was in control, what was out of our control, how do I evaluate that. So I've always made those decisions after the fact, and that's what I'll continue to do to the best of my ability.
Over here.
You mentioned earlier completing a circle was something you're focused on. I'm curious, what does that look like to you? What does that mean when you say that?
It means when you start something, you want to finish it. That's what it's meant to me and my family. So that's sort of the direction that we've always tried to go. So that means it's not quitting in the middle of something when you don't think something's finished. So I don't think I'm finished, and that's this coaching is very difficult because you're on a merry-go-round that's going about 150 miles an hour if you come at you. So he's trying to, centrifugal force keeps you in the center of that. Okay, that'd be a good quote, a good word. Yeah. Highly intelligent word. Okay, but I think it keeps you right in the center of that, so you're constantly going to the next thing. You just are constantly going to the next thing. It's recruiting, it's critiquing, it's spring ball, it's summer, it's this, it's that, it's fall camp, it's the season, and then you just keep going. And I've been fortunate enough to be on that. Been blessed to be on that. So that's what I do. That's what I've done. I'm the head football coach at Michigan State until whatever. That's sort of, because I'm only in control of some things. I'm not in control of everything. So I do my best. But I feel pretty certain that there's always little reminders of the past hanging around us. So when I went home last night after working 15 hours, scratching my head and saying, why am I working 15 hours? Again, or 85 hours a week. I went home and, you put on something, I don't go to sleep, and it's contrary to what people believe. I don't. Okay, so I got something off the shelf and put it on, I looked at it and said, oh, there's a rose gold sitting on this thing. Okay, and it sort of sent the message home to me that there's been a lot of success here, a tremendous amount of success here. And that can happen again, and that can happen under my watch. And so that's what I felt. Got in bed, snuggled up, and got up at 5:15. So.
Mark, is there any room, I guess, in your opinion, in these next two games to, obviously Brian's leaving after this year, and there is a push to get to the bowl, but do you think is that a priority, I guess, at all, to try and get another guy or guys in there through this last stretch? And I'd imagine that's a difficult balance either way.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance. But I would say that, yeah, there's that thought process, and I got to see it in practice. Got to see it in practice, because the number one thing that we need to do, and I've said this opening statement here, is that's crucial, is to win these 2 football games. And the first one is up. So don't worry about the second one till the first one gets up. So all my focus is basically on Rutgers, and okay, what do we got to do? What do we got to do to beat Rutgers? You know, obviously, if a recruit comes on campus of that stature, you don't want to take our time with them, but my focus is Rutgers. And how do we get better? And how do we play our very, very best?
We've got time for a couple more, Jim.
Mark, in that regard, I think Grant had a really good question to a couple of your players a couple of days ago. Does this situation remind you of going to Minnesota? I think it was in 2012 when you had to win to get into the postseason. Can you draw from that at all? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. We needed to be 2-2. That's all. It wasn't 2-0. We just needed to be 2-0. 2-2. Okay. And that's all that was important. So we sort of gathered ourselves together and went there with a purpose. And we're able to get that done. Both those games.
Mark, with what's been accomplished for 13 years and the reality of the present, what completes your circle? Does it take finding something else with the Rose Bowl logo on it, or is there something else that will tell you that you have done what you came here to do?
That's a tough question because every year starts with the dream of being the Big Ten champion. That's been a reality here. It's not a pipe dream. We've been able to accomplish that. So that's the standard. That's the standard. And so you're trying to meet that standard. I think as we go forward, you're trying to meet that standard, which is a high standard. And if you look at the teams that we've played this year and point towards those, you know, only one of those teams that we played is going to be a Big Ten championship. We've done that with the playoff, with the Big Ten championship game twice and co-champions once. So, but that's the measuring stick, and that's where you want to get. But then you step off the plank at that point in time. I don't know. So I don't know. You know, that's why I sit there and say I live in the present, because you don't know those things. You just don't. You just know how you feel, and you know how you feel physically, and you know how you feel that people count on you. You feel an accountability, an obligation to your players. You know, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's a good question. It's hard to explain that.
I know that you kind of talked about some of the young players and everything else, but and the Minnesota game and everything, but especially with the changeover coming on the defensive side with so many guys losing, how critical is not only just getting to a bowl game, but getting those extra practices for those guys moving into the offseason? You
know, it's always been critical. You know, we've been to a bowl game every year but one. So that standard is established, and it's important. It's important to get people. When you get to the bowl game, then you start practicing for the bowl game, and it becomes more important to win the bowl game. So, you know, some of the young players we're playing already. I mean, they're getting game reps, and we continue to put people in there like Tate Halleck is in there and playing on 3 different special teams. So guys are getting reps, and guys are getting some turns in terms of what they're doing. You know, we've had a lot of injuries, those type of things, but you know, other places have had injuries too. So they're getting opportunities, and but it's important to have
this 4-game rule now. I mean, in the past, when you had that opportunity, you didn't have the chance to play with true freshmen. I mean, were there times where you went into that and you said, we have true freshmen that could be playing right now?
Yeah, a lot of time over the past. You know, we've had that. And we've got some guys that are young players that still have not played that are very good football players. You know, so Jalen Hunt's a guy that I keep saying, you know, he's a good player, be a very good player in the future. And there are others, just bringing them up. You guys all good?